Hi and welcome to this next part in the Seiko 6138 UFO series. In this episode we are going to be disassembling the dial side components to gain access to the hour wheel assembly and to try and find out why it is not resetting and holding in place. So we begin by removing the hands using hand levers. And then the dial is removed by loosening the two dial screws opposite one another. And with a little encouragement, it lifts away. Once cleared, the dial is placed into a protective wrap just to ensure that no damage occurs or scratches. And we then look at the day-date components. There's the dial holding ring which just lifts away. The day wheel is removed by levering up the C-clip that you see there and lifting that off the hour wheel, and then the day wheel just lifts away from there. Underneath it you can see the jumper for the day wheel star as demonstrated here. Here I'm just showing the operation of the cam for the quick day date change, and in a somewhat better setup than the 6139, which uses a push method. This one just uses a rocker with a cam that moves back and forth depending on which direction you turn the crown in. And we begin to remove the date wheel components. So the holding plate up at the top here is simply to lock in place the teeth of the date wheel, and this is retained by one screw, and then the plate is lifted away. The day wheel star cam assembly is located with one screw. This is unscrewed and lifted away. And then the date change mechanism, which changes the date at the 24-hour intervals, is unscrewed and removed also. This is comprised of three components, two of which are plastic. I'm really not a fan of plastic gears, and Seiko seems to be very fond of them. It's the one thing I really don't like about them. The upper two are made of plastic. The lower one is a metal wheel which is driven by the hour wheel. This is removed after we remove the three screws which hold the day wheel jumper plate in position, and this also acts as a cover for the date wheel jumper. The date wheel jumper will look very familiar to anybody who's stripped the day-date component side of pretty much any Seiko model. The date wheel lifts away once the rest of those components are removed, and then the driving wheel at this point can be lifted clear. This completes all the day-date assembly side of the 6138, and we can then look at the plate, the date assembly plate which covers the front chronograph works. There's the jeweled bearing for the lower arbor, barrel arbor pivot, attached to which is the intermediate day wheel driving wheel. The plate itself is held by three screws. And it's worth noting that this plate can actually be removed with the day-date components still attached to it, but it's also worth noting that it's better to remove them because it allows better visibility on realigning this plate and refitting it. And with the final screw removed, we can remove the cover plate entirely. This just lifts up and away and exposes the hour wheel chronograph components underneath. And it's immediately apparent that something is amiss, as I can see something stuck under the chronograph lever that shouldn't be there, or certainly shouldn't be loose. It is in fact a part that should be there, but it's a broken part of a lever, and we'll have a close-up look at that in a second. And there I'm just wiggling that free without trying to catch any of the other components. And here in close-up is the part in question. This is part of the hour flyback lever, and the remnants of which you can see at the lower part of the screen. You'll see that in a little bit more detail in a moment. And this is the part that pushes the hammer to reset the hour wheel, and also allows the brake for the hour wheel to engage or to disengage. And there's the hour wheel in question, just lifted away. You can see the brake for it is actually currently misplaced, but that just occurred during the lifting of the plate. That's the spring for the brake. And the hour wheel sits in its pivot, and just popping that into place to show you how this operates. It's a little fiddly. But the hour wheel sits in its pivot there. The brake only moves a small amount, but it's enough to either lock or unlock the hour wheel to allow the intermediate drive wheel on the barrel arbor to drive the hour wheel around. And then just up to the right of the picture is the hammer. Here I'm just repositioning the hour wheel so that the heart is in roughly the correct place for the reset, to try and demonstrate how that operates. So you can see the flat portion of the heart, and just up there the hammer, which actually strikes that and resets it to the 0 position. During the process of doing this, it momentarily frees up the brake, and then once it returns back to its original position, it applies the brake to the hour wheel, preventing it from turning during normal running. And there is the spring for the brake of the hour wheel. So the hammer assembly, as you can see, moves down here and pivots on this lower pivot section, and an angled spring connects the reset hammer with the hour flyback lever. And hopefully you can see there how the reset hammer and the lever allowing the brake to free up operate. I'm having to be quite careful here because obviously everything's under tension but not held in place, so it's quite easy for things to ping off, as you can see with the spring that just popped off there. And if we move down here, we can see the broken section of the hour flyback lever just there. And obviously with this lever broken, it's not bearing onto the hammer to allow it to be reset. So you can see it's just pivoting freely and isn't actually doing anything at all. So a replacement part has been ordered to repair this. And once fitted, everything should operate as it should. There's the other part of the hour flyback lever showing you roughly how it sits in the assembly. So here we're going to remove the dial side chronograph hour wheel components, starting with the spring, the remnants of the hour wheel flyback lever, and the hour driving wheel with the chronograph heart, the spring for the brake. This one is slightly fiddly, so you have to be careful that you don't damage it on removal. It needs to be wiggled and unhooked from its post, like so. The hour wheel hammer is lifted clear of its pivot. I can see it's putting up a little bit of a fight just at the moment. And this is because the pivots that they move on are actually stepped like a shouldered screw. There you can see the full hammer assembly, and the bit in the middle that looks like a pivot is actually where the hour wheel flyback lever bears on it and pushes it to reset the chronograph. You can see there also we've got some magnetism, so I will need to demagnetize these parts and the movement before I reassemble. And then going back up to the top of the dial, we can remove the brake assembly, which consists of two components. This one that I'm lifting away here has a long shaft which runs through the entire thickness of the watch, because this also engages with the hour reset lever on the back of the chronograph works. Which of course is for the seconds and minutes, and there you can see is the brake, which the eagle-eyed among you will have spotted that I actually fitted back in reverse when removing originally, but there it is in the correct position. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.